Hello YouTube, this is Ian here, and we're going to be working on Lab 6, INTC 2020. On the screen I have a couple tasks we're going to be performing on Server 01. We're going to be configuring IP address restrictions to restrict client computers from accessing websites. We will be configuring anonymous authentication. We will be using basic and Windows authentication, and we're going to configure SSL. Now first what we're going to want to do on 6.2 exercise is we're going to need to install the IP and domain restrictions role service. Now to do this we're going to navigate to Server Manager. We will highlight the roles and we're going to go down to Role Services. We will add the role services. If you'll scroll down to Security, we're going to look for the IP and domain restrictions right here that I have highlighted. If there's a blank checkbox next to it, you can go ahead and check it and install the service. It'll take a couple minutes to install. However, if you're like me, I already have the service installed. Okay, so next thing what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and exit out of that. Now, I'm going to show you first how we connect to the default website, just to show you that we have connection. We'll connect to the 127.0.0.1 default website, and as you see we have connection. I'm going to hop to the partner server and show that the connection works. Oops. The only difference this time is we're going to type in server01.contoso.com. This is because DNS does not have an entry to look up server 02. So we have connection. I'm going to hop back on the server 01. Now on server 01 I'm going to change the unspecified access to deny. That way unspecified computers do not have access to the website. So we're going to navigate to the IIS manager. Under the nodes we're going to under the server node we will expand that, and under sites we will also expand. We're going to highlight the default website and we're going to look for the IPv4 address and domain restrictions. We will double click that. And we're going to edit feature settings. We're going to specify deny. We will click OK. Now let's see how that changed our access to the default website. Type in the website URL again, and notice how it throws an error at us that we do not have permission to access the website. Let's try server 02. And again we do not have access. So we're going to hop back to server 01. We're going to close this out, and we're going to specify access for server 02 but not server 01. So we're going to go to administrative tools, go back to the IIS manager. I actually already had it open so I can close that. We're going to go back to the default site, and under the IP address restrictions we're going to add an allowed entry. Now for the server 02, let's check the IP address real quick. In order to find your IP address you can go to the command prompt and you can type in ipconfig-all. And this server IP address is 1.1.102. So we're going to go ahead and write that down, keep it in memory. We're going to specify the address. We're going to click OK. We will then close the IIS server manager. And let's check to see if we now have access on server 02. Type in server 01. And notice we have connection on the partner server. However, we do not have connection on the plain server 01 computer. This is because we specified access for the partner server to have access by using the IP address of this partner server. What we're going to do now is we're going to specify the range of IP addresses that connect to the website. So in order to do this, we'll go to Administrative Tools, we'll go back to the IIS Manager, we'll go back to the default website, and we're going to add in another allowed entry. This time, instead of specifying just a single IP address, we will specify a range of IP addresses. Now we're going to need the loopback address for the servers. So my loopback address is going to be 10.1.1.0, and the subnet mask is going to be a 24-bit, which is 255.255.255.0. We'll click OK, and then we're going to allow access from any IP address, which means we'll turn the restriction off. So we'll go to Edit Feature Settings, and instead of Deny, we will go back to Allow, and we will click OK. Now in doing this, we'll check the connection again. We should be able to connect to the website again, and thus there's connection. That demonstrates how to work with configuring IP domain name restrictions. So for exercise 6.3, configuring anonymous authentication, if you haven't done so already, we're going to need to install the AD domain controllers tool on 2020 Server 01. So in order to do this, we're going to go ahead and go to the server manager. Now select features node in the scope. In the details pane, we're going to click add features. We're going to under the remote server administrative tools, which is right down here, we're going to expand that. Under the role administrative tools, we're going to need to find the Active Directory domain services tools. We will expand that one more. And the Active Directory domain controller tools are going to need to be installed on the server. So we will click next. Click install. It's going to take a minute or two to install. I'll go ahead and skip that for you. Okay, once you've done that, you can go ahead and close. Hit close. Now in the AD Active Directory, we're going to add a user account, iuser01, and we're going to add it to the IS iUsers group. So in order to do that, we're going to go to Administrative Tools, we're going to go to Active Directory Users and Computers. Under contoso.com, we're going to expand that, and under Users, we will highlight that. Now we're going to add a user, so we're going to go to New, we're going to go to User, we're going to type in iuser01. We're going to make the same the login name. We will click next, and we will click next, and then it finishes creating the username. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to need to make that user a member of the iUsers group. So we will go to Properties. Actually, you can right click it and add to a group. Now in the object's name, we're going to type in iUsers, IS iUsers, and then it says once you've added it, this operation was successfully completed. So once you've done that, you can go ahead and exit out, and we're going to go back to the IIS Server Manager. We're going to go back to the default website, which would be expanding the server node and the sites, and we're going to double click Authentication. Now as you see, I have 4 authentication methods. The basic digest in Windows, we will be using it later in a later exercise. We're going to highlight the anonymous authentication we're going to edit. And then we're going to specify the user we will set, and then it asks for the user credentials. In the username, we're going to contoso /iusr01. Password, we will make it what we made it, which was password, and we will confirm the password. We will click OK, and then again we will click OK. Now to test that the account we created was successfully associated with the account and that it works, we're going to go back to Active Directory and we're going to disable the account we created. So go back to Active Directory, Users and Computers, we will find the iUser. We're going to right click and we're going to disable account. And then it says that the account has been disabled. And now we need to restart the server, so we will close out of all the windows that we're in. And I'm going to perform a simple restart real quick for you guys. Alright, so we've restarted our server and we're going to try to access the website, the 127 default website. And as you see, it does give us an error because we are unauthorized to view this page. So now that we've checked that we've correctly disabled the iUser's account, we're going to need to reactivate the account in order to view the website. So we'll right click and we're going to enable the account. Is restart the default website. Now in order to do that, we'll go back to the IIS Service Manager. We're going to go back to the sites on the server, and to the right, under the Manage Website, we're going to restart. Once we've done that, we can retest the connection again. And as you see here, it worked and we have proper connection to the server. Now in doing this, you have configured the anonymous authentication on a user. That way, if that account's disabled, that they no longer have connection to the website. Alright, so now that we have completed 6.3 exercise, configuring the anonymous authentication, we'll be completing 6.4 using basic and Windows authentication. So in order to do this, before you can do this actually, you'll go to Server Manager and you will install the role services that will allow you to use the digest, the basic, and the Windows authentication methods. So you'll highlight roles and you'll go down to role services, and under security it's going to be the first three checkboxes that you got. As you see on my screen, I have already installed them to save time. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and we're going to go to the web server IIS manager. So go back to administrative tools, server manager, IS manager, I'm sorry. We'll open up the nodes for the server and the websites. Under the default website, we're going to highlight it, and under authentication, we'll double click. Now as you can see, the three authentication methods that you just installed will show up here. Since we've already worked with the anonymous, we're going to enable the basic authentication and leave the anonymous authentication enabled. We'll just type in server01.contoso.com, and notice how it shows the website. This is because although we have basic authentication method installed, this isn't the only authentication method. What we're going to do now is we're going to disable the anonymous authentication. Go ahead and have that disabled. We're going to go back to Internet Explorer and we're going to check the connection and how it's changed. Now as you can see, when you connect it, it's going to ask you for credentials to connect to the server. We're going to enter the credentials for Student 01. And as you can see here, it doesn't allow our access because we are on a account that doesn't have access to the website. Now after three failed attempts, it'll show you this error page. This is because we didn't specify the domain that we are connecting with. So we're going to go back and we're going to connect using the Contoso credentials for the server. So we'll type in server 01. We'll type in Contoso. Oops. Then we're going to do a backslash. And then we'll type in student 1. And notice how after doing that we successfully connect to the web page. This is because we need to specify in the login information the domain in which we're connecting with. So now doing this, we're going to go back to the web server IIS manager and we're going to enable the Windows server, or the Windows authentication method. So we'll highlight default website, we'll open up the authentication methods, we'll go under Windows authentication, we're going to enable. Now let's check again how that changed our connection. Now as you see there, it displays a another checkbox or a credential checkbox, which is different from the last one. This one we're going to specify the website domain that we're using. We're going to type in student 1, and we're going to give it the proper credentials to enable. And once you've entered the password, you'll see that you can connect without any issues to the server using. So in doing this, next what we're going to need to do is we're going to close this, and we're going to enable the anonymous authentication, and we're going to disable the basic and Windows authentication. So we go back to IS Manager, open up the Windows Server, and under Sites, go back, Authentication. We will enable anonymous authentication. We will disable basic and Windows. Now once you've disabled all three, or actually the two, the Windows and the basic, what we're going to do now is work on the next exercise. Now in doing these changes of authentication, you're using different methods for a client to connect to the website and credentials they have to provide. So now that we've worked with basic and Windows authentication, what we're going to do now is configure SSL. Now SSL is an encryption method used when connecting to servers to provide a protection from data that goes across these two machines. Now the first thing we have to do when configuring SSL is create a self-signed certificate and change the site bindings to HTTPS, and we will use the certificate that we create. Now to do this, we're going to move to the IIS Manager. We're going to highlight the server that we were working with, and the icon will be down here under Server Certificates. We'll double click that, and we're going to go to the right on the scope that says Create Self-Signed Certificate. Now we're creating a self-signed certificate because this network that we have is an intranet. It's not an internet. Click that. We'll name it something along the lines of server 2020 server 01, and we'll click OK. Now we're going to go back to the default website, which is right here. We will highlight it. We're going to edit the bindings for SSL. So the bindings right here, you'll click that and add a binding. This one will change from HTTP to HTTPS. The SSL certificate, where we named, we'll go ahead and click server 01, and then we'll click OK. Notice how the port changed from 80 to 443. So we can go ahead and close that. Now under here there's a little lock icon and it says SSL settings. We're going to double click on that and it brings us to the SSL settings page. And we're going to need to check this checkbox next to require SSL, and there's a checkbox right below it which says require 128-bit SSL. We're going to also check that box. We will then click apply. It says the changes have been made successfully. This requires that site to use SSL to connect web page. Now we're going to connect to the default website using an HTTP, regular transfer protocol. We're going to see how it affects our connection. Now notice how that it throws an error 403.4. It says the page we're trying to access is secured with SSL. Now we're going to make a small change here. We're going to change the HTTP right here to HTTPS. And let's see it. However, I know it's a safe site. And there's a little pink bar at the top saying there's a certificate error. This is, of course, going to happen. But as you see here, we've successfully connected to the website using an SSL connection. Now, real quick, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over on the partner server and we're going to test the connection of the website using HTTPS. Now, if all's right, the connection should fail because the website's using a self-signed certificate which does not trust. So let's try that out real quickly. to Internet Explorer. And it gives you the security alert again. We'll click OK. Notice how there's a problem with the website security certificate. This is because it's not going to trust the computer. However, we're going to continue to the website. And again, it'll allow connection as long as you continue without closing the web page. Now, in doing all of this, we have successfully configured SSL to prevent a user from accessing a website if they don't have this security certificate. That completes the steps for this lab. Thank you for watching.